Hello everybody, what is going on? Happy Friday night, or whatever it is for you. It's Friday for me. I'm making this very late at night. I just got home from work. I'm a little bit tired, so forgive me if my reaction's a little off tonight, but I'm posting a video nonetheless, so you can take some happiness, take some joy in that. But tonight we're gonna be checking out the 10 deadliest SCPs that can destroy everything by Chuck. Now, this was recommended to me about a while ago, like 12 days ago, by someone named it's Amy L.I. I feel bad. I feel like I've already butchered this name, and I feel so bad. But yeah, we're gonna go check this out. We're gonna see what this tier list is about. And yeah, I mean, hopefully this is gonna be a good video. Hopefully it's worth the watch. That's all I ask. Is like, this video is worth watching and it's worth putting up on YouTube, because I've come across things that I've reacted to that I'm like, don't think it was worth it. I think it will be worth it. I think this could be interesting. I've seen a lot of, like, top 10s. I've seen a lot of, like, different things kind of very similar to this. So, this should be good. But yeah, anyways, guys, I'll have the original link in the description. Make sure you go subscribe to Chuck. That link will be in the description as well. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's hop right into these 10 deadliest SCPs.
If you've been on the internet for a decent amount of time, you've likely heard of the SCP Foundation, which has amassed millions of fans, thousands of entries, and a menagerie of strange, creepy, dangerous, and outright overpowered entities that could destroy everything one holds dear.
Okay.
The SCP Foundation is basically an online fictional database, maybe it's not fictional, but who knows, that deals with a global organization doing Area 51 type shit to secure an attempt to contain hazardous objects or beings, such as the nearly unkillable SCP-682 that adapts to virtually anything that tries to end its existence, the creepy and disproportionate SCP-096, a humanoid with a tendency to lash out at anyone who dares to look at its face. And of course, SCP-2317, a demonic kaiju hell-bent on breaking out of his perpetual prison to bring the apocalypse upon the Earth. There are thousands of entries and a lot of lore, and although not all of them are harmful or malicious, there's a common trope that a solid number of them could break out and wreak havoc upon mankind, the galaxy, and the universe. But there are some SCPs that are so powerful that virtually everything that encompasses the uncountably infinite multiverse and its innumerable dimensions and narratives are at risk for deletion.
Okay.
I have already covered some of the strongest and deadliest SCPs within the first 3,000 entries, and this video will cover the ones within Series 4, 3,000 to 3,999. And these are the ones that I believe stand out among the rest in one way or another. There are numerous object classes and different levels of risk associated with them. Safe class SCPs, as their name suggests, can be for the most part kept under a lock and key and are well understood. However, this doesn't automatically mean that they cannot pose a threat if they were to break out. Next are the Euclids, which have bizarre behavior and are more difficult to contain. Some humanoids, such as the aforementioned SCP-096, that can endure brutal damage, and a speed-blitzing, neck-snapping statue, SCP-173, are within this category. Finally, we have the Keter-class anomalies, which are much harder to contain, understand, and at times can prove to be more dangerous. However, just because an SCP has a higher object class doesn't necessarily mean that they are more dangerous than one with a lower class. For example, SCP-2207, which I covered in Series 3, is a safe class object, a plastic knife that has been locked away. But when it was used to cut the fabric of space and time, it threatened to destabilize the entire multiverse. Now, with that out of the way, let's go over some of the deadliest, overpowered, and interesting SCPs within Series 4 that may threaten everything as we know it. First on the list is an SCP that is outright creepy as hell, and that comes in the form of SCP-3199. A bizarre abomination culminated from the cells of chickens, humans, and many other species in order to create the ultimate life form that was found in an abandoned forested area. These Keter-class entities are approximately 3 meters tall, hairless, and to consume their prey, they can spit out corrosive acid, and as such are highly resistant to it as well. Okay, but how is this dangerous apart from looking really sketch? You see, SCP-3199 was a monstrosity meant to remedy the world's hunger problems by creating a species that could reproduce and survive with far less sustenance than humans.
Okay.
Because of there being no observed limit to how many eggs one specimen can hatch, it's been theorized that they can lay as many eggs as long as there is a large enough space. Although they can be killed with enough firepower and are not much more durable than a normal human, their complete eradication is nearly impossible, and their rubbery eggs even more so, because brute force, acid, high-precision blades, and even scorching heat had proved fruitless in destroying them. You would think that trying to incinerate the eggs to smithereens would be the way to go, but unfortunately the eggs actually feed off of sources of heat, meaning that plasma weaponry or explosives would be ineffective and only help them to hatch. To destroy an egg and shatter its tightly packed shell completely, you need to deep freeze it, crush it, and then incinerate its remains, meaning that it is a lot of work and energy to put down just one instance. Now imagine thousands or millions of them. Luckily, the Foundation has kept their existing specimens under a lock and key, and in order to hinder their ability to lay eggs, they simply have to be submerged in water. Why? Well, because they perceive the water to occupy a space, and they essentially view it as a section where they cannot lay their eggs and move around. The reason I thought SCP-3199 deserved a spot here is not only because of its creepy appearance, but because of the threat it presents on a global scale if it were to break out. They may not be as deadly as the Flood from Halo, but just one egg can quickly become thousands of men chicken and overrun mankind's rule given enough time. In the deep ocean depths of the Bay of Bengal exists the next deadly contender on our list, a big-ass eel known as SCP-3000, one of my favorites, that is estimated to be 600 to over 900 kilometers long, and to this day, it is still unknown as to how big it truly is. Yeah, a ginormous eel may not look that threatening at first, but that is until you realize what this creature represents and what its capabilities are. SCP-3000's territory is hundreds of kilometers long, and its activities are supervised by the SCPF Eremita, which has to routinely collect a compound that the Foundation desperately needs to create amnestics, specialized compounds used by the Foundation to apply to individuals and populations to make them forget of anomalous events and other strange criteria. If you have seen Men in Black, you could think of amnestics kind of like the neuralizer that the agents use to strip a person of their memories. Unfortunately, the people who routinely work in this field are subject to losing their memories and actively become confused as to who they are and make them constantly doubt if their memories are truly theirs or if their memories became wrapped up in someone else's head. Despite its massive size, it is believed that it doesn't need to feed on fish or whales or whatever you may expect an eel kaiju to feed on. In fact, the only thing it feeds on is consciousness, memories, behaviors, and whatever higher mental functions a being needs to function. Because of this diet, and in order to keep it contained or kept within a specific region in the ocean, the Foundation has decided to routinely feed it D-class personnel, usually criminals that committed atrocities. After consuming its prey, the ginormous eel secretes a viscous gray substance known as Y909, which is thought to be a person's soul or their very consciousness in physical form. SCP-3000 essentially feeds on what makes sapient creatures, well, sapient, and filters out the residues. It is because of this highly important compound that the sea beast is termed as a Thaumiel class SCP, a helpful force of nature in a way. Its behavior is normally sedentary, as SCP-3000 has no reason to venture out into other oceans to feed on unsuspecting sea voyagers.
That would make sense.
But hell, even if it was to move around and about, there's likely nothing that we could do about it due to its nature and higher dimensional existence. If you have read the Marvel comics, you may know about the cosmic abstract entities such as Eternity, who represents time, while Infinity represents space, and Oblivion, who represents the absence of time and space entirely. In the SCP-verse, on the other hand, there exists Mikani or McCain, who represents intellect and technology. while Yaldabaoth, his rival, represents life and instinct. There are many other gods in the SCP-verse, such as SCP-343, who is implied to be the almighty god that created the whole cosmos. There's also He Who Made Dark and He Who Made Light that represent the aspects of darkness and light. However, SCP-3000's true form represents oblivion, an empty void in space, the absence of consciousness, and what remains after everything ends. In a way, you can think of it as the oblivion of the SCP universe. In essence, SCP-3000 is not simply an eel kaiju. It represents a vital part of the multiverse, and that is to personify whatever remains after everything ends. Its name, Anantashisha, is very closely related, likely on purpose, to Shisha Naga, the king of the serpents in Hindu culture that is tied to the absence of existence itself and is coined as the Endless One. So, long after the universe or the SCP multiverse falls, one of the beings that one may expect to see survive is very clearly SCP-3000, or at least its true form.
Huh. Okay.
Within my Series 2 video, I went over SCP-1425, a book called Star Signals that, when its instructions are followed, inducts a person into a religion called Fifthism, which basically deals with reality warping and a strong fascination or fetish for the number 5. There are multiple manifestations of this religion, and they are all connected to the god of Fifthism, a starfish god implied to be SCP-3125. And one of these manifestations is detailed in the Kaiju C storyline. Upon trying to find the truth behind Fifthism, a team of explorers uncovered a very important shrine that mere mortals should have never come across. And because of that, their reality was punished severely in the form of an overkill invasion of crocodilian, squid-like kaijus called by many names: Crocosquid, Quint Kraken, Plocomisuchus, and my personal favorite one, Tokage Tako, which are implied to be the angels or enforcers of Fifthism due to their appendages following a pattern of 5. It is theorized that these beings aren't even within the same branch of the multiverse, and as such, abuse the square cube law, which allows them to grow to well over several hundreds of meters long and cause tsunamis and earthquakes just by moving around. In 1988, prior to the expedition that led to the kaiju invasion, a crocosquid suddenly emerged and attacked a mystical island of Irish fairies known as High Brazil, due to its high magical energy levels that they have a strong attraction to. Because of the huge threat it presented, multiple factions within this reality tried a multitude of weaponry to take it down, but it proved to be very difficult due to its capabilities and resistance to earthly technologies. Their scales are almost as hard as diamonds, they can feed on the life energies within their surroundings and within beings, they can cast spells, and they can literally spew out hellfire in the ocean depths, although they do require a good amount of energy to do so. Within the SCP-verse, there is this unit of energy called Humes, which represents the amount of reality within an object, location, or a being, and how it will react to its environment. And because of the crocodile kaiju's relatively low internal Hume levels, it lessened the effects of our reality's laws or weaponry on its body, which, as you can imagine, made it a bitch to take down. In order to defeat one, it required a multitude of methods, and like plasma cannons and railguns were unable to permanently damage the creature. And even when they did manage to land a critical hit, it didn't matter, because the kaiju basically has god hacks and could regenerate almost instantaneously. So these factions had to kick it up a notch and use anti-magical and magical types of weaponry that would nullify its otherworldly defenses and temporarily alter its physics so that it would be unable to move properly. And despite slowing it down and hammering the hell out of it, the enforcers of peace had to use one final solution, which was to nuke it to oblivion, which did manage to put an end to the creature. Unfortunately, this was only the precursor of a terror that was yet to come. I would say it's pretty similar to what happens in Pacific Rim, except it's a lot more sketch, and the kaiju are on steroids, like times 1,000, and they literally up the earth so hard, like, oh my god. Within one timeline, we are met with the Kaiju Sea, an alternate version of Earth that is heavily flooded, and nearly all sentient life and likely other SCPs were wiped out by the massive monster invasion that came in the thousands. Even with all of the nasty-ass weaponry and protocols that the SCP Foundation and other factions had, it didn't matter, as the Earth was left unrecognizable and became a home for these mythical creatures. These kaiju may not be as powerful as Godzilla, but they are still really hard to put down, and they are not to be underestimated. There's a lot more lore involved with the Kaiju Sea, but if you'd like me to cover it more in depth or see if Godzilla could survive in this sea, I can certainly do that.
Alright.
Alright, so what could be worse than magical fire-spewing kaijus and a horde of man-chickens? Well, I think a giant space kaiju certainly steps things up, doesn't it? Our next contender is SCP-3485, an uncontainable Keter-class entity, which is, simply put, an alien lobster, which is so gargantuan, the word gargantuan doesn't do it any justice, because SCP-3485 is big as f***. I mean, it is approximately 1.6 million kilometers long. For reference, it is even longer than the diameter of our sun. It is located over a dozen light years away from the Earth, thankfully, but the reason it can pose a threat to the Earth is not only because of its immense size, but because of its abnormal food source. It does not have blood or have any need for nutrients. Instead, it has a gaseous solution, which alongside its heat-resistant anatomy, allows it to consume the leftover helium and hydrogen from a star's fission reactions. In fact, its shell is so durable that it has withstood collisions with planets, coronal ejections, and a star's immense heat numerous times. To make it worse, it can actively instantly teleport itself to whichever star it sees in its periphery. Fortunately though, due to its huge size, it takes a long period of time for it to decide what to do and for its nervous system's impulses to course through its body. Although it is not actively hunting our star in particular, due to the fact that it frequently collides with planets means that one wrong move and it could crash into the Earth and end our existence. And I mean, what are we gonna do, nuke it? Yeah, good luck, bro. It's literally almost as big as the sun and feeds on stars, which releases far more energy than all of our nukes combined times like, I don't know, a trillion or quadrillion or whatever, right? We're not taking down this thing. I think we're f***ed, bro. Yeah, destroying the Earth and wiping out mankind is okay in terms of accomplishments in the SCP-verse, but that is nothing compared to what we have coming up next. You may not expect this next SCP to be dangerous, but you are in for a rude awakening in the form of SCP-3096, a Keter-class magnet that threatens the stability and existence of our reality as we know it. It is quite confusing, but here is the main gist of it. Due to its crazy properties, SCP-3096 has a continuously changing position in the time stream, and its containment deals with it always being exposed to temporal fields in order to stabilize its position and keep it from making contact with its counterpart in the future. But why though? In order to prevent the destruction of our timeline, the past magnet had to be altered in a way that its position through time was accelerated, while the other magnet had its position slowed down. Because if the two magnets were to meet up in the same position at the same time and hold hands, something very lewd, it would essentially tie causality, our timeline, into a knot and destroy it. By the timeline folding in on itself, every molecule in the universe and our planet would move back into the past over and over and over and over again. No matter or energy would be able to move forward, essentially putting our universe into a perpetual time loop, like some Doctor Strange on Dormammu type shit. It is very dangerous, but luckily, as long as we keep them apart from each other, we should be Gucci. Now, let's head over to a far quadrant in the cosmos known as SCP-3200, commonly referred to as the Boötes Void in real life. A region in space over 300 million light-years in diameter that holds a very dark secret. Due to its strange properties, trans-universal communication, i.e. communication with other realities, is possible by approaching this region, which is theorized to be possible as a result of the fabric of space-time being abnormally thin. You might think that's a good thing, but not really, because unfortunately, due to its Hume levels being much higher than the rest of the baseline universe, its effects on local reality are quite detrimental on a cosmic scale. In order to find out the truth behind this anomaly, the SCP Foundation sent out a vessel with time-manipulating generators to explore and document it, but the crew found themselves with a very grim situation. After obtaining messages from countless other realities that also had to deal with SCP-3200, it seems that this pocket of unstable space-time was present in virtually every universe. Even after studying it for decades, the crew still had no clue as to how to hinder the progress of the anomaly that was expanding. But then the revelation came to one of the crew members before logging off permanently. We were fools. The void isn't a region where space-time is ruined. It is the source of the tear itself. Space-time itself is rending itself apart, and we're seeing echoes of every timeline in the past and future. Time is an Ouroboros, devouring itself again and again, only to be reborn. I saw all of it. All of the times we tried to stop it in the past. All the times that I try to stop it in the past and the future. This happens again and again until we get it right. Over and over again, we try to fix it. All times blend together until we reach singularity and all is lost. The tear opens more holes everywhere in reality, and the anomalies appear faster and faster. But containment is only delaying the inevitable cleansing of the slate. I saw all the timelines, and we haven't stopped it in any of them. Mater Voshia, we have seen into the abyss, and by God, it hates us. In other words, SCP-3200 was itself a tear in space-time that would merge all timelines together, create a singularity like a black hole, and consume everything. It is unclear if it would affect every spatial dimension within it, but it is fair to say that it could at least destroy the multiverse on some fundamental level. How one would even contain, much less prevent such wide-scale destruction is unfathomable, and this anomaly is one that is very likely unstoppable. Really, the only thing we have going for us is that although it expands rather quickly, it would still take quite some time for it to reach the Earth and consume everything in the cosmos. In this scenario, time is our only ally, and I doubt that will be enough.
I like time.
The next SCP on our list is quite similar, but it has an additional layer of complications. This anomaly is known as SCP-3493, which drains people's memories and their knowledge about it, making it very difficult to catalog. SCP-3493 is basically a memetic that erases information about itself in the local universe. So, in order for its information to be stored, the SCP Foundation had to communicate with other universes and catalog the information about their own version of the SCP within these other realities and keep the other anomalies' information within their own. I.e., they traded information about each other's anomalies to suppress the memory wiping effects of the anomaly, which was its only weakness, if you could even call it that. However, SCP-3493 was unlike typical memetics because it was in the form of a higher dimensional black hole that punched in from a higher dimension into our reality and other ones as well. It is theorized that the black holes themselves are anchors of influence for a being called the Maw, and the only way to stop its effects from spreading is to seemingly destroy these black holes, which seems pretty impossible due to the fact that one of them is hypermassive and has the estimated mass exceeding over 310 quintillion solar masses. And this mass not only consumed entire galaxies, but eventually ate universes, creating a pitch-black, once habitable cosmos. The anomaly is so dangerous that it was outright given and unable to avoid object class, and one solution, if you could even call it that, was to literally evacuate everyone to another reality altogether. Like with SCP-3200, it seems that these patches of unstable space-time can affect and destroy universes. However, this is still small fry compared to the strongest beings on this list. Imagine that there was a malicious entity that tortured you for millennia upon millennia and could break and piece back reality like it was a plaything. This is what SCP-3999 entails. A Keter-type entity with a very convoluted trail of events, which made it a bitch to read. I don't know why it was written like that. But the basic gist is that an SCP researcher named James Talleyrand came into contact with SCP-3999, a higher dimensional entity that wanted to make him suffer for millions of years, and in the process, would destroy and rebuild the universe over and over again. SCP-3999 is by far one of the strongest beings in the verse, due to the fact that it was implied that it wiped out everything in the multiverse. Despite it requiring a host to materialize its effects, I believe it is somewhat superior to the previous two SCPs because it was able to restore reality over and over again casually just to fuck with Talleyrand. Even so, it is still cannon fodder to the #1 entity on this list. Finally, we get to one of the strongest beings in the entire verse that rivals and surpasses like 99% of whatever we have seen thus far. Yes, including SCP-682, SCP-1 the Angel Entity, SCP-2317 a possible iteration of the Scarlet King, and even narrative eaters such as SCP-2747 or SCP-3125, the God of Fifthism. It is a Keter-class SCP that cannot be contained due to its teleportation, reality warping, shape-shifting, manipulation of files in the SCP database, and the inability to be killed or affected. On top of that, it can affect the laws of physics, erase people, memories, and even concepts. Basically, SCP-3812 is a higher dimensional entity trapped in the body of a human named Sam Howell, who was created by another being named Ben, who wanted to see how far the narrative and dimensional stacks go within the furthest reaches of the uncountably infinite cosmos of the SCP multiverse. Unfortunately, he made it way too powerful. Like, he wrote it to be so overpowered and made its narrative be associated with the constant and seemingly unending ascension of narrative layers of reality. It was even stated that SCP-38112 not only surpassed his creator, but the level above that, and would constantly surpass whatever pinnacle it had reached previously, seemingly having no end, and would theoretically transcend many gods in the verse, and possibly even ideas. In attempts to remedy its fuck-up, the being who created SCP-3812 tried to wipe it out numerous times, but to no avail, because he made it way too overpowered. Remember how I mentioned that Humes can be used to measure how much reality is in a given area or being? Well, SCP-3812, even prior to ascending, was already so transcendental that Hume detectors were outright unable to detect anything from the anomaly, even though other godly beings in the verse have had detectable Hume levels. To make it even more crazy, SCP-2747, the Anafabula, which I will cover in depth at some point, was unable to erase or affect its narrative, even though the Anafabula's whole narrative is to consume other realities and narratives below and above it. In fact, the Anafabula is implied to be the idea of seven, which Fifthism fears, and is associated with or encapsulates the idea of darkness, which beings such as the Scarlet King are subjugated or are represented by. Baseline, the entity can easily destroy the Earth, which did happen at one point, but also the universe, the multiverse, and the narratives that lay within, above, below, and between it. Outright being able to compress uncountably infinite stacks of narratives and uncountably infinite spaces between each narrative to the point that they unravel and cease to exist altogether, creating a PK class all-in-one, holy shit, this is really crazy powerful, existential pandemonium event. Meaning that it would be a far greater threat than simply destroying the multiverse, as it would destroy the narratives above it and whatever is above that as well, infinitely. Fortunately for us, and unfortunate for the entity, Sam Howell has a lot of mental instability and as such doesn't have complete control over its capabilities, but that doesn't mean that it cannot pose a threat. Overall, I'd be confident in saying that SCP-3812 is likely one of the strongest entities in the entire verse, at least being top 3 when we are accounting for the thousands of entries in the database. It should deadass scale above, or will at least eventually surpass, the true forms of the Scarlet King, SCP-682, SCP-343, Mekani, Yaldabaoth, and other mighty powerful cosmic entities. Now, do I believe it is the absolute strongest entity in the verse? It is possible, but I do feel that there are other entities or ideas that may rival its path to ascension, which I will cover in future videos. So what'd you think of the list? There were a lot of candidates that I did have in mind to put in this video, but I didn't want it to be too long, so I did only pick a couple of them. Just because it isn't on this list doesn't mean I don't think it's powerful, because there were a lot of them, right? But I couldn't possibly cover all of them, right? But these are the ones that I thought were the most interesting and most overpowered. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe if you want to see more SCP content, and I will catch you thotties next time. Peace out.
So what, you said there's over 1,000? Oh. Okay, I might have to cop out this music. I don't know if it'll get copyrighted or whatever, so I might just have to crop out the music. I don't know what I'm gonna have to do. If YouTube gives me a copyright claim on that, then I'll go fix it. But yeah, anyways, he said there was, over 1,000? Over 1,000 SCPs? And these are, the 10 that was, the most overpowered, the deadliest ones? I'm sorry, Like, for one, I'm tired. I've had a long day. I've had legit no break time. Absolutely none. I got up, I had like an hour to like eat, get ready, and then I was at school for 6 hours. I had track practice, and then I had 30 minutes after track practice to shower, get ready, and go to work. And then I had to come back home. And this was on my mind the entire day. And I was like, man, I feel bad. Like, I've been putting this off for almost 2 weeks, and I feel bad. I feel bad. I try not to put these videos off, but my busy schedule sometimes gets the better of me, and that's something I gotta be better at. But I mean, yeah, this was it was long. I mean, it was definitely draining for sure, but it was definitely a rewarding thing to come back and watch. Regardless if it's SMG4 or a requested video by you guys, I'm always down to watch these videos. All right, even if it's something I'm very unfamiliar with, even getting to grow like just a little bit in my knowledge, like of things like SCPs or I don't know, NFTs or something like that. I don't know. Just being able to grow my knowledge in anything is pretty rewarding in and of itself. But I mean, yeah, I've been tired all day. That's why, like, if my reaction seemed off to you guys, not trying to make any excuses, but that's just, I mean, that's life, you know? That's just how life goes. Yeah, anyways, I'm gonna end it tonight, you guys. This was a fun video. This was a good video to watch. It was very informational. It was very, um, it had its ups and downs. Again, shout out to Amy Lee for or lie. I feel like I've butchered that name a couple times throughout this video, but I mean, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for recommending this to me. I am so sorry that I could not get this out sooner. But I'm glad that I was able to watch it. Hopefully you enjoy me watching this, having some, reacting to this with the little energy I had. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more pumped up tomorrow. I tried hyping myself up before this video, but I've just been super drained today, but yeah, anyways, guys, what did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on this video. And if you really did like this, hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more content of mine, subscribe to this channel. I actually have an idea of what I want to do for 5,000 subscribers. I know we're miles away from that, but if you want to hear me talking about a 5K special and then a 10K special, I will do that. Just let me know in the comments below if you want to hear what my plans are right now. So yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to try and get this out before... I'm actually going to try to get this out before I go to bed. And yeah, I'm going to do my best to make sure you guys watch it. And I hope you guys watch this because I do my absolute best in everything I do. That's all I try to do. And I hope that's what you guys expect of me is my best. Or at least what's left of my best. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. GeekScalper26, signing off.